Once there was an evil wizard who had a whole drawer full of faces that he could put on. I think that I shall put on one of my friendliest faces and go down into town and capture a young maiden, turn her into a statue for my garden. Let's see. Is this a friendly face? I'll try this one on. It's not a friendly face. Drat. It must be this one. This is my friendly face. This will be it. That's not it either, huh? What? Maybe this one. Is this a friendly face? It is? Perfect. Now, to dab my lips with a little honey so that my voice sounds sweeter. Well, how does that sound? Too sweet. Oh, right, let's take some of it off. Perfect. Now, to capture a maiden and turn her into a statue. The wizard had a cloak that he could wrap around himself and fly down into the village. But his magic would only work over anyone else if he could persuade them somehow to step on his cloak. Once he did that, he had them in his power and could bring them back to his castle and turn them into statues. So the wizard wrapped his cloak around him and flew down over the intervening hillsides and near to the village, and aha! Down there, I see a young lass taking the goats out to the pasture. Perfect. He landed behind her, and he spread his cloak over a mud puddle. Young lady, don't walk in the mud. Walk on my cloak. Your feet won't get dirty. But the young lass, whose name was Elsa, a saucy young thing with golden blonde hair, she just picked the cloak up and handed it back to him and said, "Sir, I like to walk in the mud," and she proceeded to squish her toes delightedly. The wizard thought, and then he saw a field with a great big bull in it. Yes, that will be perfect. He sent a buzzing bee to sting the bull. Boink! And then, as the bull went, he said, "Little girl, jump back, and my cloak will protect your feet as you jump back from fear." But Elsa did not jump back. She instead called out to the bull, "Sigurd, poor thing, did a bee sting you?" Oh, and she reached through the fence and stroked his great nose, and the wizard said, "Arr!" Then he saw a thorn bush. Perfect. He threw his cloak over the thorn bush and said, "Little girl, there, see how I protect you. You don't want to get thorns tearing your nice dainty dress, do you?" But Elsa said, "Sir, your cloak is over the bush that my goats need to eat." And she lifted it off and handed it to him. But one of the thorns ripped the cloak as she did so. And the wizard said, Why, look at this. You see, there's a big tear in it." And Elsa said, "Why, I'm terribly sorry. Give it here. And she wrenched it out of his hands. Give that. What are you doing?" She pulled out one of her own golden hairs. Bing! And she used it as a piece of thread to stitch up that tear until it was as good as new. Now, when she handed it back to the wizard, you would think that even an evil wizard would have a bit of gratitude. He said, "You've missed a spot. Come closer so you can see." And he dangled the cloak on the ground in front of her feet. Elsa said, "It looks fine to me." "You have to come closer." So Elsa took a step forward. and she was in the wizard's power. He wrapped the cloak around her and began to fly back to his castle, but she fought and fought until one arm stuck out and grabbed something. It was the branch of a tree, the topmost branch, and she held on for dear life. The wizard was straining. "What's the matter with this cloak? Why can't I fly?" And then all of a sudden Elsa popped out like a seed from a fruit, and the wizard went whing off in the other direction. Elsa climbed down from the tree and ran home as fast as she could. The wizard got back to his castle and opened the cloak. Ah! Drat! The wizard went to sleep that night thinking, tomorrow I'll have to find some other lass to be a statue. Ling, 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 ling. Something was glowing so bright that it hurt his eyes. It was the golden hair that Elsa had sewn into his cloak. What did that brat do to my cloak? Ling, 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 ling. I'm not going to get any sleep with that thing. He took it into the next room and threw it on the floor. But 5 seconds later, ling, 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 it was right back where it had been. He carried it down the stairs to the dungeon and threw it in one of the cells. Back up to bed he went and laid his head down. The cloak was glowing brighter than ever, and it was back where it had been. He flew into town, and he searched until he found Elsa's house, and he tapped on her window. Tink, 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 tink. Elsa came to the window. What do you want? You little brat, what did you do to that golden hair that you sewed into my cloak? It's glowing so bright that I can't sleep. And Elsa said, "It serves you right, sir. Good night." And she closed the blinds and wouldn't say another word. The wizard went back to his castle. He flew the cloak out into the heart of the darkest depths of the swamp, and he dropped it into a murky pool. Then he went back to his castle, but as you might have guessed, as soon as he laid his head down on the pillow, the cloak was right there and glowing brighter than ever. So bright it was like a miniature sun he could hardly see. He thought to himself, I'll show that little brat who's got power. I'll turn one of my statues back into a real person. He went down to his garden. He picked the ugliest one. I never cared for that one anyway. And that statue was alive again and went running back to the village. The wizard went back to his castle, and lo and behold, the hair was glowing a little less brightly, but it was still so bright it was painful. So the wizard went down to his garden. He said, well, I hate to lose this one, but all right. And that statue turned back into a child and ran back to the village. And the hair was glowing a little less brightly. But it didn't stop glowing until the wizard turned one after another, all of his statues back into people. And then the glow settled down to just a warm little glow. And the wizard said, all right, tomorrow I'll start building up my collection again. Ling, 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 ling. I mean, tomorrow I'll do good work, and I'll help the poor and the needy. Ling, 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 ling. And from that day forth, the evil wizard became a good wizard because it was the only way he could get any sleep.